You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 121. I've been wasting your time. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, my beautiful brave hearts. How is everybody doing? I am going to spend the first couple of minutes just explaining the interview a little bit that we're about to talk about with time and giving you a couple of updates about the Get Over Your Ex program. So if you're not interested in hearing about, Breakup Coach Dorothy and what it's like to work with me and the Get Over Your Ex program and what's going on, feel free to just skip forward by like 5 minutes. And I don't know if I'm going to be talking for 5 minutes or not, but if you don't want to hear about that, totally fine. You can just fast forward the episode. So I just want to update you and let you know a couple of things that are going on that I'm very, very excited about. I titled this episode, I've Been Wasting Your Time, because I went to Costa Rica to a business workshop retreat situation where I spent multiple days hyper aware of and focused on my clients, my process, how I help people get over their ex. And what I realized is a lot of times I could have a just one conversation in 10 minutes and help someone get over their ex. I host a 5-day breakup boot camp or a 5-day training. And a lot of times people get over their ex in that 5 days. And sometimes they don't. And we do the Get Over Your Ex program. And that's in 3 months or less. And people will get over their ex in 3 months, or most of the time what happens is it takes less than 3 months. And the fascinating part about that is I've created this 3-month container where I'm almost like forcing you to take 3 months to get over your ex, when in reality, it doesn't have to take that long. So when I came to this conclusion and I had this really in-depth conversation about time at this retreat with one of my best friends who happens to be a time coach, I made a little bit of a change inside of the Get Over Your Ex program that I actually think all of you are going to love. But you still have 3 months. However, you unlock content in whatever pace you want to go. Meaning, before I would give you new content every week, and now I've reorganized it in a way where when you complete a module, it unlocks the next one for you, so you can move through the content and the material as quickly as you like. Or if you want to take the whole 3 months, that's also totally fine and totally okay as well. And I'm just so pumped for you guys to have that ability. I think it's going to be a game changer for a lot of you. And for those who love all of the content up front, you're going to be super excited. So I thought that was amazing. I'm super pumped about that. And we're going to talk all about time in this episode with my best friend, Elsie, where it gets really, really juicy towards the end of the episode. I just re-listened to it as I'm editing here. And again, when I say editing, I just mean like placing the intro and the outro out and writing up the description. But it got really juicy towards the end of the episode. Was probably my favorite part, where we're talking about, I won't spoil it for you, but I really want you to consider while you're listening to this episode, what it would be like to get over your ex before the holidays kick off. This episode is launching the Monday before Thanksgiving, so we're pretty much launching and kicking off the holidays, but wouldn't it be just so cool? I want you to open up your mind to just the possibility of that happening. Are you even open to that happening? Why or why not? And questioning that for yourself. Like, how would that change your holiday experience? And if you're listening to this and it's not the holidays, maybe think about the next upcoming holiday or the next upcoming, event in your life that you genuinely want to have a good time at and enjoy and be present in. And what would it be like to believe that it's possible to get over your ex before that event? And for anyone who's listening to it on the Monday that it airs, are you open to the idea of getting over your ex before Thanksgiving? Isn't that crazy to think about? I think it's so interesting to think about. Um, and so, with that being said, I have opened up pre registration for the Get Over Your Ex program. Enrollment wasn't supposed to open until December 9th. However, I wanted to provide support to those of you who want the support before then, so over Thanksgiving. And so, what that looks like is when you enroll into pre registration of the Get Over Your Ex program, the Get Over Your Ex program specifically still won't be open until December 9th. The Brave Heart community won't be open until December 9th. But when you enroll, you're going to get instant access to the new Brave Heart Academy, which has never been seen by anyone before up until this point. You will also get instant access to a course called How to Handle Your Heartbreak During the Holidays. Beautiful, which also comes with additional coaching. So I will be coaching my face off the week of Thanksgiving. How fun will that be? And then you will also get instant access to the 5-day training that I'm talking about that people use and get over their ex in 5 days. As well as if you're one of the first 20 within the program, you're going to get the physical workbook, the Get Over Your Ex workbook that I've talked about before. So if you were already planning on enrolling inside of the Get Over Your Ex program, I would absolutely do it now because you're just getting more content, you're getting more coaching. You're pretty much going to have 4 months with me instead of 3. So that's super fun. And again, it's not going to take that long for you to get over your ex, but you're going to be able to, once you get over your ex, you're going to be able to focus on all these other things that you want to do that will help you go out and create a life that's bigger and better than the one that you had with your ex, because that is a huge component and that is the next step in that equation. So if you're interested, I just wanted to throw that out there, talk to you a little bit about that, get your mind thinking about time and how long you want to take to get over your ex and why, and what would it be like to be over your ex before the holidays or the next event that is coming up for you if you're not listening to this during the holidays. All right, my brave hearts, I hope you love and enjoy this episode as much as I do. I'm sending you all the love. I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I will talk to you next time.
Hello, hello, my beautiful brave hearts. How is everyone doing? I am so excited about the guest I have today. Miss Elsie Lauren Cash is one of my besties, and we have been coach friends for a very long time. And now she's like a best friend of mine, which is always super, super fun to bring some people on who are like besties of mine and have fun conversations like we do every single day, but on a recording so that everyone else can hear about it. Because it's such good wisdom, good little nuggets of gold happening. And I'm so excited. I want to say just a little bit about how I met Elsie before. Do you want me to address you as Elsie or Lauren?
You can call me Elsie.
Okay, cool. So I met Elsie at the Life Coach School certification, and I had interacted with her via email before then because I was in Self-Coaching Scholars, and she was the customer service person for them for just a hot second before she moved her way up. And I interacted with her and I was so excited to see her in real life. I fangirled over her. I was like, oh my God, I get to see you in real life. This is so cool. And she was doing her thing and we chit chatted. And long story short, we ended up going to a Just Lively event, which was super fun. I feel like we can never remember if it was in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, but one of the P's. And it was a great time. And it was one of the first experiences that I had where I had another friend or another human being to just sit down and watch coaching videos and listen to podcasts while we're getting ready. And we had such similar interests in things. It was so easy to be around one another. And I loved that. Anyways, lots of things happened in between then. We've been to masterminds together. We've been to all kinds of LCS events together. And then we also did inner voice facilitator training together. So we've gone down that rabbit hole as well. And then Elsie got interested into human design, and she brought me down that rabbit hole too.
You're welcome.
So fun and loved it. Amazing. We happened to both be projectors, which was so fun. She's wearing her projector t-shirt today. I should have done that. Didn't even think of it, boo. And so we're in Projector Playground with our coach, Lauren Armstrong, together. And that's going to be like a year-long thing. So we're going to be working hand in hand closely together for a while. And I just love it because I get to have all of her brain insight and wisdom. We get to chit chat about real life things, personal things, business things. And it is just one of my favorite spaces. So I wanted to bring Elsie on to talk today to all of you about time, because I know that all of you have heard me talk about time when it comes to heartbreak. And I say, you can get over your ex without it just taking time, getting over your ex in 3 months or less, or 5 months of healing in 5 days. I have a lot of taglines that have something to do with time because I personally got over my ex in a moment. And when we hear about in society that it's just going to take time to heal your heart, it's just almost like a blanket answer to someone going through hurt, and it's really not useful. And I've addressed it a couple of times in the podcast, but I wanted to bring on Elsie because she is the time queen. Like, there was someone who is reigning over, the time calendaring, work front. That is Elsie. This is what she specializes in. She talks about time. She helps me with calendaring, all of this stuff. It's amazing. I'm going to actually hand that over to you now, Elsie, to give a proper introduction of yourself, of what do you do? How do you help people? Tell people more about you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me on. It doesn't even feel like we're like on because we talk so much. So it's just like talking to one of my best friends. Aw. Okay. So, was said already by Dorothy, I am the time queen. I love that. I like saying that I'm a master time coach with a spiritual twist. And I was talking to someone earlier today about why I like time and why I like working with that. It's really a mental construct that we're going to probably talk more about in a little bit, but that's kind of just like my way of getting into working with people is through one of the things that our minds have a lot of issues about. Like, our minds have a ton of issues about relationships and getting over our exes, but they also have all this drama around this mental construct of time. And it's been fascinating for me to work with different people around it because it's really the same thing over and over and over again, because I can work with an attorney, and then I can work with a creative, and then I can work with a coach, and their minds all say the same exact things about time. So I love working with that. But recently I've been thinking about how I love working with the construct of time, obviously mindset coaching and causal coaching that we both do. But then now that I've gotten into human design and the gene keys, there's this aspect of energy as well. So it's almost like, and then money really comes in very closely when we start talking about time and energy. So it's almost like I'm a resource coach, like energy, time, and money are all things I really love coaching on. So
that makes so much sense too, because you also, when we think about resources, when I talk about investing, I talk about money, you're investing money, time, energy, and effort. And you do touch on all of that energy and effort.
I do. I love talking about effectiveness. And before I even was a projector, I was talking about that. And I think it's because I'm a projector and I don't have as much energy. We don't have as much energy as the collective does. So I was always looking to be more efficient and effective than the rest of everyone because of that, just naturally.
Who knew? Who knew?
Yeah. So that's what I do. I help
Okay.
people with that.
I love it. Okay. So tell us, so in human design, you're a projector, your authority and profile. Do you want to share that with people?
I'm a 2-4. So that's my profile. Splenic is authority, or splenic, depending on how you like to say it.
Yeah. What's your zodiac sign?
I'm Aquarius. Yeah.
love
I don't know as much about like regular zodiac stuff. I think in how do you say it? Vedic? I always just say my Eastern astrologist, but it actually has a name. But that, I think like my rising for that is like Scorpio or something. So it's interesting because it's like a different vibe.
That is a different vibe. I can see Scorpio in you.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love it. Amazing. Okay. So where are you located? Can you tell people where you're located?
Oh, right now, because I'm always moving around. At the present moment, I'm in Las Vegas, which cracks me up every time I say that I'm here because it just is like it doesn't sound like me when people think about Vegas.
It doesn't scream Elsie. You're not like, oh yes, Elsie is there.
Yeah. But
have you thought about, I don't know if you want to talk about this here, but have you thought about where you're going to move? Do you want
I'm on the menu right now to consider and feel into is Arizona, because my parents are moving from California to Arizona. And last year when I moved here, I just knew I wanted to get out of California, and my parents were still in Southern California. So there weren't a lot of close by options to keep driving with pandemic stuff. So that's why I ended up here. And now that I know where they're settling down, that kind of gives me a better idea for where I could potentially look. So I'm going to do sort of a tour, I think, of Arizona next month.
I love it. So exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll hear about all of the things in our projector playground. I'm so excited. Okay. So why don't we start out? I want to hear about heartbreak from your perspective in terms of, have you ever had to get over someone? And what were your thoughts about it when we think about time? And do you feel like time had anything to do with getting over that person? Why or why not? And honestly, Elsie, you could talk about, I don't know if you've experienced heartbreak before knowing thought work and then experienced heartbreak after knowing thought work, and like thinking about the differences there too, or open to like adventure and explore all those areas.
Yeah. So, how would you define heartbreak?
That's good.
How
I
do
like
you
that.
define it?
Yeah.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So I guess when I think about heartbreak, when I personally think about heartbreak, it's a lot of grief. It's a lot of loss, sorrow, devastation. And then I think there's varying degrees of it, where you have like minute heartbreak and then you have massive heartbreak where it kind of interrupts everything day to day. It interrupts your life. Everything you thought you knew is like gone and destroyed, versus like the minute heartbreaks of like, ooh, I'm like, it hurts, it stings, it's like sore there, but I'm not second guessing myself. I don't feel like my whole world has been demolished. I think there are varying degrees. And I think the people listening are kind of along all over that spectrum.
Yeah. So before thought work, I'm trying to think. I know the one that keeps coming up for me is it's really only the two that come up for me the most are two people that broke up with me. And that's rare. Like of all the men, I've dated a lot of people. So I'm like, of the large amount of people I've dated, because I've never been one to be like in a long-term relationship. So that'll impact this as well. I guess not though, because time again, like how long have you been in the relationship? That's funny that I'm automatically doing that.
That's so funny. Yeah, because that's another thing. Can we just pause on that for just a quick second? Because that comes up where people will come in the program and they're almost ashamed because they have all of these feelings and they feel so heartbroken, even though they were only dating for like 3 weeks or 3 months, or maybe never even dating, just in a situationship. And they still like are having a hard time with it. They have the same emotions and feelings as someone who was married for 25 years. I think again, though, the devastation and the loss across your life might be different, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So these two were two that broke up with me, which usually I'm the one doing the breaking up. So I remember having a harder time with those, I think because of that. But who knows if I would have known thought work, if that would have been easier. So I think I had a harder time getting over them. Um, but
What?
I never was really thinking like I just need time, I don't think, even though I didn't know thought work then.
Okay, I was just gonna say, so that's before you knew thought
Yeah,
work.
that's before.
Okay, and so you never once were like, oh, I'm gonna need time to
I mean, I think
heal.
people would say that to me because that's what people seem to say.
How
Yeah,
long
but
did it take you to get over them?
that's a good question. So one of them was my sophomore year of undergrad. So we're talking like a long time ago now. Um, I don't think that long because I think I dated someone maybe 6 months after that. And then the next person was when I was in LA. And I don't think it took that long either. So I think I still like, even before thought work, I've never really been one to, at least what I think of as a long time to get over someone. I've been pretty quick. And I've had people tell me that before, that I move on fast from
Mm-hmm.
relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting too.
Yeah.
And then since thought work, I mean, I have my most recent one this year,
Mm-hmm.
and that was actually a mutual ending of a relationship, which is what I had hoped that it would be. And we're still friends and still very involved in each other's lives. And I would say I would have some sadness and grief, or I will have sadness and grief when that part ends, when we're not friends. We haven't had that really end yet. So I think that kind of I'm not thinking things that would create as much pain then because of that. But I really just grieved probably a week for that. And then, but I really let myself like sob, take full days of like just really processing emotion and the like what I thought was going to be. I think you posted something on your Instagram this week about like, are you really having a hard time getting over him, or what you thought he would be, or what you thought your future would be together? And for me, I'm a very future oriented mind. So for me, most of the time, the hard thing of getting over someone is not the getting over them. It's the getting over the future planning and vision I had for myself with them.
Yes. Makes so much sense. Yeah. It was like, are you missing him, or are you missing the potential of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. So when I talk about time and heartbreak, one of the things that comes up for me, I'm just going to like try to explain it to you here, and then I want your thoughts about it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to getting over someone, to me, it's about letting go of anger and resentment. I mean, because that was a huge part for my journey. Letting go of anger, resentment was huge, and reducing the attachment. We have attachment, and I also use that word interchangeably with desire, to that specific person, like feeling attached to that person to have an amazing life. And the way we do that, right, is through changing our thinking, changing our thoughts. And so changing our thoughts don't take time. Sometimes it does take practice, and the practice takes iterations, right? But when I think about why people say it just takes time, is one of those things where we look back retroactively and we're looking at all of the things outside of us to prove what we can believe inside, instead of believing in something inside and then finding all the evidence on the outside. So for example, like when you get done with grad school or something and you go out and you apply to all of these different jobs, and you get your first job that comes back to you and is like, oh, we want you, this is amazing, all this stuff. You go and you interview, and then they turn you down. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so devastated. But then another job comes to you and they offer you 3 times the amount of money you were being offered at the first one. And you get to work remote and you have a super flexible schedule. And you're like, oh my gosh, That's why it didn't work out with the first one. And so when I'm talking to my Bravehearts about this, I'm like, what if we always had the belief that it was always happening for us and not to us, which is something that a lot of people say now, and that's good, amazing. But the reason I say that is because instead of looking like retroactively, it's like going out and creating the desired outcome that you want versus spending all this time describing what you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts about all of that when you think about timing and heartbreak?
Yeah, I really agree with you. And during one of the parts, I was seeing like a bunch of different models and like aspects of the model. So, like, I like the idea of like changing the thought line and the T line of like the belief aspect, and that happens in an instant. But what you were saying that's like so good is that it really helps our mind then when we fully complete that model. So then when we have that R line, the result there, that's going to be something probably like we end up attracting other potential partners, is what it kind of sounded like and how you were talking about it. And then we take that R line of that model, it becomes a C of a new model. And then that helps us like really root into that belief that there are a lot more people and possibilities out there for us that are the 300K job, remote job, or whatever it is.
Yes.
So I feel like it's like, yes, like it takes some time like to get from your T line to that R line of like, it takes some time from you believing something to see the physical manifestation of that, which is the R line in the model. And that's when it can feel like you believe it even more fully, is because you're seeing that more tangibly or more in reality. But it had already changed. Like you had already gotten over your ex already before the physical manifestation of that aspect.
Yes. And I think that goes back to talking a little bit about being the person who has the result before you have the result, right?
Yeah.
So being the person who's over your ex before having the result that you associate as being over your ex.
Over.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something to just talk about as well. I think I have a podcast episode on this, but being over your ex is going to be different for everyone. So you have to define that for yourself. A lot of people define that as having zero attachment to that person, having zero desire to be with that person. Some people define it as like no longer thinking about that person or no longer missing that person. It's like across the board. And some people might even be like, oh, I feel comfortable being in a new relationship, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I think it is important to notice that, like what you were talking about, where it's like, you're going to be believing the belief. I kind of talk about this in the program, actually. You believe you're over your ex before you realize the result of being over your ex.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I almost asked you, like, what does it mean to be over your ex earlier? Because I'm like, it really depends. And now that you're giving all the examples, I was trying to think, like, what do I consider? I think it's when I'm open to the possibility of dating and potential, like when you said that one like really resonates with me.
Yeah.
But that it's even like tiny bit past probably being over. Like the moment is like right before that for me.
Yeah. And for me, it was letting go of the anger and resentment. Like I got to this. Well, actually, no, it was a couple of things. Let's back up. Let's be real honest here. That was like the final one for me, was addressing the anger and resentment and letting that go, because when I was feeling angry and resentful, I would take actions of doing weird shit, like posting stuff in hopes that he would see it and making decisions that I thought he would approve of, things like that. And so that to me was being over my ex, was letting go of that anger and resentment. And I found so much relief and calm. But then also I think there was the attachment of him, thinking that I was required to have him in my life to build the life that I wanted, which now is so clear that was incorrect. I can't even imagine. I have friends who hang out with him and his now wife, and like the life they live, like it's beautiful and amazing, but it's like so not the life that I would choose now that I have my life.
I love that for you so much. And everyone should think about that for them. Like that's for you as well. Like
Mhm.
whatever you end up with later is going to be like that, where you're like, what?
Yes. And I think it's important too to recognize that even if you think you wanted that life, like I think like when I got done or not got done, but when I was dumped in that relationship, I was devastated because I thought I wanted that
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize were all the other options. I was like blinded from all the other options that were so much more in alignment with me. If someone would have come to me at that point and been like, you're going to be a breakup coach, I'd be like, what? What? And I didn't even know I liked coaching at the moment. And now it's my dream job. So I think it's important to remember that. And also, while we're talking about this, Elsie, can we talk about a couple of different like results while we're talking about this being the person who has the result before the result appears a little?
Yeah.
So we talked about it in terms of getting over your ex, but what about the results that are correlated to building a life that's bigger and better than the one that you had with your ex? For example, paying off debt or buying a house, like your dream home, or saving up money or having a job where you make more money. Can you talk a little bit about this? And maybe I want to get more specific here around the question. What are the biggest hangups that you see when it comes to creating results and time?
One of them definitely is like we bring the same thinking in that we currently have in order to solve that puzzle, but it doesn't work that way. So, for example, like when we think we want to work less and make more, we think we need to almost crunch in more hours to be able to get more money if we're thinking it's like $1 per hour thing. But that only works up to a certain amount of time because then we have like a finite amount of time in a week. And so I think that's where it can be really fun then of like, because I don't know, let's say you only were allowed to work 40 hours a week and you can only crunch so much in 40 hours to get output of whatever money, then why not start thinking about a higher level solution to that problem that's outside of the time and money equation construct? Like you have to break out of that in order to work less and make more. And I think it's the same thing with other like quote unquote problems, like maybe the house, for example. If you're like have your blinders on that you're only going to buy a used house and renovate it to be your brand new one, you wouldn't be open to the potential that there's a builder building brand new houses. And that was the way that you were going to create it. Like we end up closing ourselves off to new constructs, new possibilities. Like you were saying about even with the ex, like you just didn't even know what you truly wanted because you weren't even aware of the options. So I think that's one of the things that we do is like, we don't even know what we don't know. And that's the problem.
How do you teach your clients how to solve for that?
So definitely like opening up to like, I call it like opening up to the magic and possibilities. So even getting coaching can really help you from a really good coach because they'll ask you really great questions that will start to help you see other potentials or will show you where you're supposing like a law of the universe where there actually isn't a law of the universe. Like that happened recently. I'm trying to remember what it was, but that happened to me this week with a client where they thought a specific thing was like a universal law, but it wasn't. And so having a coach show you that, but then also whatever it is, starting to search even the internet. Like I like to look at like YouTube or podcasts or blog posts to find opposite arguments for things or alternatives for things, or how are other people coming up with solutions for these things. Like recently I've gotten super into like tiny houses, which I know they're like a big thing right now, and even like I was thinking certain tiny houses, like you can't have a gorgeous, expansive like kitchen. And now I've disproven that by seeing some really awesome YouTube videos of some gorgeous kitchens and like stuff like that.
I love it. I love it. I love that so much. And I did a podcast episode called When It Feels Impossible. And I talk about thought shifting, and it kind of sounds like that, where it's like you change your thinking to be different thoughts that then make the problem solving so much more. It's so much easier.
Yeah. And it's easier on like, I don't know, in the moment sometimes when it's like a particular person or example. But yeah, breaking it all down and looking at, because it's a lot of times like underlying math we think has to be there in order to solve the equation. Like
I have an example.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
okay,
I have
good.
an example. So one of my clients, she was on, so I think the episode would have aired by the time this one airs, and it's Bravehearts Over 40. And she was like, there's no men my age left, right? And all the men are looking for younger women. And then there's more single women in my state than there are single men, which we then Googled and was incorrect.
I love it.
Right. So good.
Yeah.
So good. And so I don't remember what she used as an example, but when we talk about thought shifting, I have them look at an area that felt like a done deal for them.
Yeah.
Of something that they already accomplished. So like an example of that was someone wrote a book, or someone became a doctor, which are things that not everyone thinks is simple, including myself. I'm like, that seems really hard. Yeah. And I have them look at like, what were their thoughts about themselves, the thoughts about the process, and then the thoughts about the actual outcome. And when you look at like that series of thoughts in combination of the series of thoughts that you have about being single at 40 in your state and not being, you realize how different they are.
Yeah, that's good.
So fun. Okay. So tell me a little bit about the next question that I had is so much similar. Like my next question was, what are your thoughts about time and heartbreak?
I think we got that.
We did get that. Can we talk a little bit about our epiphany in Costa Rica?
Oh yeah. Which one was that?
I know we had so many. Oh my gosh. What a time. What a magical time in the vortex. So Elsie and I did something super fun. We were a part of Projector Playground, which if you're not familiar with human design, I am now like, we need to have an episode with Lauren Armstrong on here, and I will have her talk about human design and heartbreak. Okay. So we were in Costa Rica at this Projector Playground retreat where we were working on our businesses. And so currently I am working towards creating a more projector friendly business, right? And so I was changing up a couple of things on my back end. So changes that as a Braveheart, you're not really going to notice, but for me, it feels like a lot of movement. And I was like really excited. I'm all in it. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And then all of a sudden we were talking about a funnel. We were talking about the funnel because I was getting confused about emails and how things were working. And normally I have you guys do what is called a 5-day training. And some of you probably have done the How to Get Over Your Ex 5-day training. It's magical and amazing and so awesome. And then you guys do the Get Over Your Ex in 3 months or less program. And then you're over your ex and it's this beautiful thing. Well, what kept happening is people are getting over their ex way faster than 3 months. And I kept being like, should I sell the 5-day training sooner because people are getting over there, or for more money, or should I omit the 5-day? I don't remember why we were talking about the 5-day training, but I was like, people get over their ex in that 5-day training, which is beautiful and amazing and so cool. Oh, and then it was like that in combination with me saying, hey, Elsie, I need to get information about Cultivate Margin because I have a client talking about Monday Hour 1. And you were like, why are people in your program to get over your ex talking about Monday Hour 1, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like a planning tool of sorts. Yeah. And it became very apparent that I was like, coaching and like teaching and doing all this stuff outside of getting over your ex, and which is not a bad thing because we talk about all kinds of stuff and building a life that's bigger and better than the one that you had with your ex. But it was almost like, not that I was doing a disservice, but all of a sudden you were like, why can't they just get over their ex in 5 days then? If people get over their ex in 5 days, why don't you just sell the 5-day training and be done with it?
Mm-hmm. Like, I just want to get over my ex here, people. I don't need to hang out forever.
You're like, I don't need to hang out for 3 months. I want to be over him in 5 days or less.
Yeah, or less. Come on.
You're like, a day would be great. And then that's what got me. And then we started talking about it. And I'm like, well, I'm on these coaching calls with people where they have the epiphany of being over their ex. And it takes, 10 minutes on the call with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow, this is so intense. This is so amazing. And so when we realized that, for me, it really reiterated everything that I talk about with time, but then it also made me realize that I had also put you guys in a container of getting over your ex in 3 months, right? Like saying that it needed to take 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I do add on like, or less, but
Mm-hmm.
what if it didn't, what if it could take 5 days? What if getting over your ex was available to you to get over in 5 days? And that to me was such a beautiful thing. And so if you join the Get Over Your Ex program, you will realize that in the beginning, the first video will say you can get over your ex in 5 days. And I have now changed the format of the content where it's released based off of your, how do I say that? When you finish a module or a lesson, it opens the next one. It unlocks the next one. So you don't have to wait weekly as I would normally force you to go slowly through the content for 12 weeks. Yes. You actually don't have to do that anymore.
All of the manifesting generators are like, thank you.
So good. So tell me kind of do you have any thoughts or anything that I didn't cover that like hit you that day about the time thing?
No, I just am so excited that you're not like forcing people to like drag it out almost.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they have a grand old time with the whole community and everything for that long. But yeah, like what if you really could be over your ex in 5 days or less?
And speaking of that, can we talk about the difference between rushing versus allowing? Because there's a difference between, at least when the Brave Hearts come into the program, like I'm thinking the most recent group that's happening right now, there are a couple of them that are like, I just desperately want to get over this. So you can tell it's like rushing it because they want to get out of it versus like allowing it to be there and like genuinely just like examining their thoughts by being curious and then deciding to change them and like almost like quietly and peacefully stepping along versus like needing to like sprint to the end. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I think when we're talking about like, you can get over your ex and it doesn't have to do with time at all. It's not that we're saying you need to like force yourself to change like in a moment. Like we open up to allow that to be the case with changing our belief about that. And the rushing has this like forcing, grippy, like very mind-based like attachment to it that will not allow you to move through and process the emotion that's required to really move through and allow yourself to be in a new space with being over your ex. And yeah. So even if it does take you longer or appears to take you longer to the mind, like I think there still can be this allowing, and maybe that's what some people are trying to say with the it just takes time, is the allow the process and go through the feeling of the emotion.
Yeah.
And it's not really that they mean it takes actual like time on a watch.
Can you talk more about that too? Like the construct, tell us, because you had mentioned something about like the time is a construct. So can you actually talk to them about like the foundation? Maybe it's like time fundamentals 101.
Yeah. Well, so it's a little bit like out there, but our minds are within like this physicality, like this physical reality. And for the mind, there's no place outside of time, because like basically within our like mind's hardware, if you will, is like this concept of time. But it was much more exacerbated or accentuated through the creation of clocks, through the Industrial Revolution, through punching a clock, through deciding to synchronize all time zones so that, at least in the US, so that trains didn't crash into each other anymore. So then we got on this like we used to have like a construct of time, because the mind always has that, but it wasn't this like hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second, like very divided up. It was like more the seasonal cycles and like the sun and all that. So I'm like, where was I? So like the mind is what is creating this concept of time. And yeah, we have like physical things like the sun and the earth and the passing of that. But our mind gets so fixated on like the smaller man-made division of that. And so we have to be careful then when we're applying that to things that we could have like more inner knowing, inner guidance, our authority in human design about, because all of that wisdom is outside of time. Like that's like in the spiritual realm, if you like believe in that.
Oh,
So that's like
so good.
outside of the mind. And so if it's outside of the mind, it's outside of time. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's so good. And it got me thinking too of like, what if we allowed heartbreak, or at least the heartbreak for us that we want, if we wanted it to be, it could be like a season. Like I go through the heartbreak through a season. Which is also kind of funny that I organically and naturally made the program a 3-month program, and that's a season.
Yeah. I love it.
But I love that. That makes so much sense. So when it comes to heartbreak, I'm trying to like tie that back to like getting over someone. It sounded to me when you were saying it, I kept thinking about if we weren't so attached to the clock, to the time, to the calendar, to the minutes.
When am I going to be over him? This is too long. I'm watching all of that.
Yeah. It would like allow us to open up, to just let it be. Let us be over our ex. Let us be over the heartbreak.
Yeah. And really be into whatever the next season is, right? Because when we're over the ex and over the heartbreak, we're not thinking about the ex or the heartbreak. We're thinking about whatever spring is rather than the winter or whatever. And it's not that like it happens in a moment, that spring is then there, you know? Yeah. And it's the allowing the winter to come through that it comes so much faster, or it seems that way, right? When we're like too busy, like enjoying our hot cocoa by the fire and all cozy, we're like, oh my gosh, it's already spring. What happened?
How'd that happen? So true. I love that analogy. It reminds me of that saying, the one where it's like, they thought they buried us, but they didn't know we were seeds.
So pretty.
So good. Okay. Is there anything else that you feel would be beneficial for my brave hearts to know about time?
I think just that, like what we were talking about, like there's so much wisdom. We think, oh, this is what it is. We think there are a lot of things that are a time issue that aren't a time issue. That if we tapped in to like the real wisdom about it, it would be an outside of a time thing. So like if we're wanting to make more money and we think we don't have enough time to, it's not really a time thing. If we want to get over our ex or our heartbreak and we think it's just an issue with time, there hasn't been enough time, or you were with them for too long, it's not the time thing. So whatever you're thinking about right now that you're thinking is a matter of a time thing, look for how it's not a time thing. And could you tap into whatever you believe in, inner knowing, your authority, Holy Spirit, God, source, life for other possibilities.
I love that. That's so good. It reminds me, I have a Braveheart alumni who is working on a couple of things, but it keeps coming down to she wants to like pay off debt, but she feels like she doesn't have enough time because she already works a certain time to a certain time. She's like, I don't have enough time to like work more to create more money. And it's like, oh, it's not a time problem, boo.
Not a time problem.
So exciting. I love
Yeah.
it. All right. Anything else that's coming through for you? I'm going to check for me really quick. No.
And it's also not a money problem. Like for her, I'm now thinking about her.
You're like, we could go on.
Cause I'm thinking about her because that was like my master coach project, right? Like I thought as soon as I made a lot more money, then I would not have debt. And then watching myself make way more money, but still have the debt was like, oh, it wasn't a money problem.
Yes, that's so good. That is
And it wasn't
so
a time
good.
thing either to make more of that money. Like
Yep.
I was working actually less than I had been working to make it's all a whole thing. So.
What were some of your beliefs? Do you remember any of your beliefs that were holding you back from that? Like what
Well,
if it wasn't time?
Well, the main thing was that I didn't want to feel disappointment. And I didn't want to deal with other people's disappointment. So there's a lot of people pleasing and agreeing to do things I didn't really want to do with my money when the money could have been going towards paying off my student loans.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a big part of it.
Mine's like a safety thing. Like I'm like, oh, I'd rather have it in cash than pay off the debt. And that it's like a safety thing. I realized that through going through your Simply 1K.
How fun.
So fun. All right. Bravehearts. Actually, one other thing, Elsie, where can they find you? I'll be sure to tag everything in the show notes so that they can just click and find you, but tell them where to go.
Yeah, I would love for you to reach out, say hi to me, DM me on Instagram. I'm at the Lauren Cash on Instagram. My podcast is called The Ease of Hustle. And my website is thelaurencash.com.
Yes. Also, guys, her branding is so fun. I love your branding and your photos. So yummy and delicious. And your Instagram, just on point. I saw the weekly wins happening today and I was like, I love this. I've missed that.
I brought it back because of you. So you're welcome.
So good. So good. Awesome. All right, Bravehearts. I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. I am sending you all the love and I hope you have an amazing week and I'll talk to you next time. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.